Okay, okay, everyone. Have you had a good lunch? Everyone? Yeah, yeah. Tummy happy? What about the mind? Is the mind kind of happy, or is it sleepy, or is it how is it? Is it okay? Sleepy? Okay, that's why I have coffee. You see, coffee. It kind of cures, helps to cure sleepiness. So I apologize, Wayen. I'm going to use this one instead of the one you made because it's a bit larger. Yeah, the one you made is very beautiful, but I am. I don't know. That's just what's going to happen. So we're going to look at some suttas called the future perils, and there's actually 4 of these suttas in the Anguttara Fives, and they are interesting. One of the reasons why they're interesting is that they are a reminder of how urgent it is to kind of get on with the spiritual practice. They are a reminder of how quickly the Dhamma can decline, how we can lose kind of contact with the Dhamma. And so these are things that can give us energy if we think about things in the right way. And this is why, one of the reasons why these things are kind of important. I think it's always important to set the stage. Usually I spend a bit of time on this retreat setting the stage for why we should read the suttas, why the word of the Buddha matters. We had Venerable Punsirivara mentioning before that sometimes people take contemporary teachers, or not even contemporary, even deceased teachers, as more important than the word of the Buddha. And that is always scary, and it's dangerous because it means we lose the connection to the tradition, we lose the connection to the real teachings, the real awakening that the Buddha must stand for. And so the Future Peril Suttas, they concern this kind of area. It gives us a sense of perspective, a sense of why these things actually matter. So there are 4 suttas. I've chosen 2 of them. And so we'll have a look at these 2 in a little bit of detail, and then we will come back to the main topic, which is the freedom topic after that. Yes, just having a quick look at this afternoon's program. Yeah, okay. So let's just get started. Future perils. Mendicants. Seeing these 5 future perils is quite enough for a mendicant or a layperson for that matter, to meditate diligently, keenly and resolute for attaining the unattained, achieving the unachieved, and realizing the unrealized. What 5? So, first of all, maybe you feel left out if you are not a mendicant, or if you are kind of partially mendicant. Some of you have nice shaven heads. That's really nice. Halfway there. So, but you're not left out just because you're not called a mendicant here, because usually the Buddha, this is just a way of addressing bhikkhus, bhikkhave, and actually everyone is included. And very often the reason is because the monks were the most senior. They were the most, kind of the people to be first ordained, etc. And so he would speak to the most senior people. That's kind of why these things happen. But bhikkhunis are included, samaneris, samaneras, upasakas. Everyone is really included. So seeing 5 future dangers is enough to become diligent. Appamado. And pamada is like being negligent. And so the question is, what is the opposite of being negligent here? Diligent kind of is part of it, but it's more than just diligence. One of the important points about this word pamada or apamada is not just that you are kind of working towards something, but that you're doing it in a wise way. You reflect on what you're doing is a very important part of this. And so Bhikkhu Bodhi has a very beautiful translation for apamada, which is heedfulness. And heedful is a bit complicated word in English. It's not the kind of everyday word that people use a lot. I don't know what people use here in KL, but certainly in Australia we don't use heedful very much. But still, most people know what it means when you think about it. Heedful means that you're kind of careful, you're circumspect, you wonder whether you're doing the right thing, you reflect, you think that, well, if I take 3 steps back and 1 forward, then sorry, so so if you take 3 steps, then you think, okay, I better be careful. What am I going wrong here? Where is this going wrong? So that's kind of the appamada here. So if you ask that question here, I'm taking one step forward and 3 back sometimes, then you are on the right track with asking that question. So you're thinking in the right way. So you are. I apologize. I don't mean to pick on anyone. It just comes up because we're talking about these things. And then you are keen. Keen, atapi. The word atapi is this beautiful word which means that you put forth energy, put forth effort, and you also have the energy of the mind. Virya is the energy of the mind. Padana is the effort that we put in. Samma padana, samma vayama, the 6th factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. And atapi is somewhere in that ballpark between those two. It includes energy, it also includes applying some degree of effort. So it's kind of being keen. I like keen because keen means that you have an interest. It means that you are applying yourself not just from willpower, but because you are inspired. A person who is keen is inspired. And so one of the very important reasons why we should be listening to Dhamma and come to Dhamma talks and these kind of things is to be inspired in the Dhamma. It's such an important thing. It's can be very hard sometimes in ordinary life. Sometimes even in monastic life can be hard. To be inspired. Why? Well, because there are so many other things in the world. There's so many other things going on. There are people who are not inspiring in our life, who detract from, feeling positive and feeling energetic. And so you need to come back to these teachings again and again to remind you there's something very important here. Very often we can be inspired, by all kind of things in life. We can feel happy about all kind of worldly things. But then we neglect of being inspired by those things that are really worthy of being inspired by, which is the Dhamma, because these are the things that give real results. Whereas often we are inspired by things that are not so important. We get joyful by things that are just small little things in life and not so important. So this idea of being inspired and keen is very fundamental part of this idea of Dhamma. Only then are we really going to be able to practice these things properly. Resolute, pahitatta, is related to padana. Padana meaning effort, the right effort. Samma padana, 6 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. And so, so by contemplating these things, we gain all of these things. This is kind of the point of this, remembering the perils of the future and inspiring us through this. And then you will achieve things you haven't achieved before, attain things you haven't attained, realize things you haven't realized. These are just different words for the same thing, basically. It means that you move forward on the path. And not only forward, but you move forward into profound things. So this is the general refrain here. So now what are these 5? So let's have a look at these 5. So don't look in a book. Don't look, because I'm going to read it out. If you look beforehand, I'm this whatever you do, whatever you like. It's up to you. I'm just being naughty. That's all. There's a chance. So okay. So here we go. First one. A mendicant reflects. Currently I am a youth, young with pristine black hair, blessed with youth, in the prime of life. This is what the Buddha was reflecting before he became the Buddha, when he was young. And he saw the danger in becoming old. So this is the ideal time to go forth and to become a monastic or to practice hard, is when you are young. Because when you are young, you have more energy, you have more flexibility, you have more ability to doing these things. The older you get, the more kind of stuck in your ways. So this is kind of one of those things about the Buddhist teachings. The Buddhist Dhamma is not like, okay, when I'm young I want to play around with the world, and then when I'm old and I can't really enjoy myself in the world, then I become a monastic. That's not how the Dhamma works. The Dhamma is such that it's always the right thing. It doesn't matter how young you are. The younger you are, the better, in fact. So if you are, I got an email Actually, a message just the other day from a teenager saying, "Oh, in India," and he was saying to me, I think it was a he. I'm not sure he or she. It's hard to know sometimes. I don't really know the Indian names, but I think it was a he. And he was saying it, and he's so inspired. But but I need more contact with the monastics. Yeah, in India I don't have the contact. Can I kind of talk with you all the time, please? Maybe I'm not sure. All the time must be demanding a little bit too much. It's kind of limited how much time we have. But it's nice, yeah, when someone is in the teenage and they're already inspired by the Dhamma. I think that's really cool, yeah. It's actually not that common. When you're that young, you often don't have the maturity to really appreciate these teachings. You haven't had enough suffering yet, or whatever it is, to really appreciate what is going on. And so I find that so inspiring to hear that. I don't know if I wasn't really ready as a teenager. And I mean, I became a monk when I was just around 30. So I needed at least my 20s to figure out that there was problems in the world. But it's very powerful, because there is a real problem in life. And, as the older you get, the more you realize, actually, you're following the path of everyone else. I'm not so sure about that. Does anyone else really know what they're doing? No, not really. They're just kind of moving along in society. So that's a beautiful thing. And so for that reason, the reflection on old age, as we shall see now, is a very important reflection in the Dhamma. So here we go. But there will come a time when this body is struck with old age. When you're old, overcome by old age, it's not easy to focus on the instructions of the Buddhas. It is not easy to frequent remote lodgings in the wilderness and the forest. Yeah, when you go old, everything gets much more difficult. And the weird thing about old age, it kind of sneaks up on you a little bit. Yeah, it's like you don't think you're old until one day you are older. Yeah, I'm not old. Oh, I'm old. It just happens kind of out of the blue. Very few people think of themselves as old. Yeah, I don't. I'm not going to ask who, if anyone thinks like that. Okay. You're not at all. No, you're all right. Just have to. So, but it happens, yeah, and you can see how the body doesn't really want. It's not so easy to sit cross-legged anymore. It's not so easy to exert yourself anymore. Other priorities, after a while, you have to look after the body, and there's less time to kind of focus on the teachings of the Buddha. All of these things get more tricky as you get older. And certainly living in the kuti in the forest, very difficult, yeah. So that's kind of easy in your 20s and 30s maybe, but even in your 40s, living in the forest, not so sure. The older you get, the more comfort the body requires. And so we have to be careful. Now is the opportunity. And that is true whether you are a layperson or you are a monastic. Now is the chance. Old age is a problem. The mind becomes more solidified in the old ways of doing things, more difficult to have that flexibility to change your ways. I see some of the monks in a monastery who ordained late in life. Very difficult to tell them what they do wrong, right? So they're kind of in the 60s and 70s, they're so stubborn, it's impossible to say anything to them. They no matter what you say, they will just carry on anyway, so you might as well not say anything. There's no point in saying anything. But young people have that flexibility, they're more open to listen. And this is just one of the realities. I can see myself, I also get very stubborn, when I get older. I don't want to hear any new things, I just want to hear the same old things all the time. That's the way it is. And so this idea, and remember, it kind of creeps up on you, this old age. Slowly, things are getting more and more difficult just as things go by. And so by remembering this, remembering it's already there, it's going to happen to you. Now is the chance. And this is one of those very important ideas, that now is the opportunity. And by now, I don't mean like today, I mean like this moment. Now. Right now. Where is your mind right now? Is it wholesome? Can you make it more wholesome? What should I do right now? I'm sitting here. Am I speaking in the right way? Okay, I'm speaking Dhamma, that's good. Am I speaking gently or trying to be reasonably gentle? Am I speaking for harmony? Okay, I'm not going to say more about Goenka. No. But be careful about what you say. It's important to say a little bit about other things because you kind of want to point out also the Dhamma. Am I lying? No, I don't think I'm lying. Okay. What else is in my mind? So the thing is that every moment really you can look at your mind. Are you leading in the right way? And right now is what matters, because only right now can you practice the Dhamma, not after this class, not after today or anything like that. So you bring it back to the present, bring it back to the moment. And this is what this is about, the sense of urgency, the sense that the Dhamma is now, the Dhamma is urgent. This is the most important thing in your life. There is nothing more important than this. Everything else is secondary. This is what will make a difference for the long term, for your future lives. All those things that seem so important in this life, like your family, your whatever you possess, your status, all of those things will be gone in your next life. But what you will carry with you is the Dhamma that you have learned. Yeah, if you have learned it, if you have practiced in the right way, that will still be with you. That is what is really important. Ultimately, if you want to overcome suffering, it's the only thing that matters. It is really, really urgent. Everything else is secondary. Wow, okay, whoa, scary. Yeah, now is the chance. Okay. Before that unlikable, undesirable and disagreeable thing happens, I'd better preempt it by rousing up energy for attaining the unattained, achieving the unachieved, and realizing the unrealized. That way, when it happens, I will live comfortably, even though I am old. This is the future peril. The more pure your mind is, the more you have developed the qualities of the Dhamma, the more you will be able to deal with all the difficulties of life. You'll be more resilient because of that. Resilience comes through Dhamma practice. And then when old age comes, okay, it will still not be nice, but it will be far less problematic because you have developed a positive mind, a mind which has those good qualities. Okay, first future peril, old age. So, let's go on to the next one. Furthermore, a mendicant reflects, currently I am rarely ill or unwell. My stomach digests well, being neither too hot nor too cold, but just right, fit for meditation. Yeah, so this is one of those factors of striving that is found in the suttas, that your digestion is well, and you are not rarely ill, but especially the idea of digestion, not too hot, not too cold, means it's just, you digest the food. Well, that's really what it means, and for that reason it is fit for meditation. And quite common to see among monastics that the tummy is no good because they stayed too long in places where the food was too dodgy. I don't know what the right word is. In places like sometimes when you come from a Western country, you may not be able to digest the food in certain places in Asian countries, for example, and maybe vice versa as well. So you people go to places like Burma and the food can be very oily, some people say, and then after a few years there, your digestion is never the same again, and you've had it. So it's quite a common predicament among monastics to have a bad stomach. My stomach is quite good. I can eat pretty much everything, so I guess I'm lucky. Whoa, that's what it says here. My stomach digests well. That means I have to. Now is the time to practice. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Whoa, quick. Get onto it. Yes, this is kind of the reminder. Okay. So it's not just for you; it's for me as well. That's right. Okay. Good. So again, remembering that old age, illness, death, of course, also just around the corner. It happens so quickly. It happens so fast. suddenly, before you know it, something goes wrong. It's such a common thing. You get a cancer, a heart disease, or maybe some lesser thing like, some whatever it is, some of these modern kind of environmental illnesses caused by bad environment or whatever. It happens so fast. And it's so easy to forget that we are all susceptible to these things. So easy. But there will come a time when this body is struck with sickness. When you're sick, overcome by sickness, it is not easy to focus on the instructions of the Buddhas. And it's not easy to frequent remote lodgings in the wilderness and the forest. So again, the sense of urgency, sense of danger, knowing the nature of the body. It's so easy to think that the nature of the body is to be healthy, when actually the nature of the body is really to sometimes be healthy, sometimes to be sick. Nothing has gone wrong when you are sick. In fact, everything has gone right when you are sick. There is no, God-given, there is no Dhamma-given right to always be healthy. Health comes and it goes. Sickness comes and goes. This is just how things are. And when we are healthy, we tend to become stupid. Yay, I'm healthy, I can do whatever I want, and then we indulge because of that, and we forget, we become complacent because we're healthy. When we're young, we become complacent, we think we're never going to age. I know that's what I used to think when I was young. Yay, I'm young, I'm never, I may be going to age, but it's so far away. Wow, it's just really, really far away. And then, whoops, suddenly you are, 20, 30, 40 years older before you know it. And so, again, you remember these realities. This is the nature of existence. It has to happen in this way. And then you cannot do those things that are required for the path to really work. One of the things you see here, you see the plural, the word Buddhas. I'm just going to maybe mention that very briefly. And I think that these suttas, I'm not sure exactly when where they come from, but these are the kind of suttas that sort of may have come about maybe shortly after the Buddha passed away, or sometime after the Buddha passed away, because they are the danger in the future, right? The Buddha may have said some of these, but some of them may also have been kind of come afterwards, because it uses this idea of plural Buddhas, which is unusual. Usually you talk about the Buddha, but the idea of multiple Buddhas, it did exist at that time, but it wasn't the focus so much in those days. So I think these are probably quite late suttas, maybe when the Buddha was just about to pass away, or maybe some of them even after that, where they become kind of fearful about the future. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Sorry. Before that unlikable, undesirable and disagreeable thing happens, I'd better preempt it by rousing up energy for attaining the unattained, achieving the unachieved, and realizing the unrealized. That way, when it happens, I will live comfortably even though I am sick. This is the second future peril. So that is the second one. So it is kind of interesting that death is not mentioned, because death is obviously a very important peril and a very big obstacle. And death is very often spoken of together with sickness and old age. You find it coming as a group very many places in the suttas. And death kind of encompasses all of these, because when you're dying you are also old, and you're often sick when you're dying and these things. And in many ways death is the one I would recommend you to contemplate the most. And when you contemplate death, it really tends to give rise to a sense of urgency if you do it in the right way. What is the right way? The right way is not just to know that you are going to die, but the fact that you don't know when you are going to die. That is the right way of contemplating death. It can happen at any time. This is such an important point. You don't know when you're going to die. And because you don't know, you really have to be ready now. Now is the only time that you can be ready. So you could fall down the stairs. This is one of the reasons I walk the stairs, because more dangerous. I can walk down. Death contemplation. Death contemplation, death contemplation. So you should also walk down the stairs. Good for your health and death contemplation at the same time. So you have kind of double double benefit. But it's true, yes, sometimes people do kind of die in very strange circumstances. Actually, my father, he died from falling down a flight of stairs, yeah. So he was getting very old and he had cancer, but eventually he fell down. And so this is very, very, very common. And if you read the newspapers, you read what's happening around you, you will see that people die at all times for the strangest kind of reasons. People who are very young, babies, children, youths, people in the middle age, everyone, it happens to anyone. And it can also happen to each one of us. That is kind of the issue here. So death is a very, very, very powerful way. If you keep on reflecting on this, I can die at any time. You think about how you can die. Maybe you have an illness inside of you, some traffic accident, falling down, stumbling somewhere, So where are we going on Wednesday, Bobby? Where are you, Bobby? Is it a dangerous place? Yes? Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, dangerous place, Make it extra dangerous. Take us where make it extra dangerous. You got a thumbs up already, just to kind of remind us of these things. So this is actually very important. We don't know what's going to happen around the corner with so many different things. And so this kind of draws it all together. And this is certainly going to be a big obstacle for the practice, because you have no idea what's going to happen after you die. So let us take a short break right there. And then we will carry on in 5 minutes or so.
Bhante, I'm just thinking from a different perspective. That is, if we want to practice to realize the unrealized and all that, isn't it because we want to do it in the present moment rather than get concerned about, what will happen in the future? Because otherwise, if we're doing it because we are worried about the future, that is not not really a good reason to do it. We should be doing it because we want to become awakened. We want to realize the unrealized here and now in the present moment. Not because we are worried about what will happen in the future. Shouldn't that be a better perspective of seeing it?
I think the problem is that we tend to think that there is more time than there actually is. So we don't tend to realize the urgency of doing things. So we tend to put it off. That's the problem. So yes, we should want to realize things, but we have to have a reason for realizing things. So you want to realize things because there is a problem. And there's many problems. One of them is just the dukkha of the present, but sometimes we don't see that dukkha very clearly. So we need a larger picture to be able to understand the urgency of things. So it's very easy to put things off. It's very easy to think that, I keep the 5 precepts. Actually, today I really need to break this precept because, today is important. I have an important business deal to sign or whatever, and you've got to do it now. It's very, very easy to put things off. But to understand, actually, there is no time to lose. It's not so much about fear and anxiety. It's just understanding the nature of life, understanding that there is short time. The time is now. Grasping things at the right time. That's really what it is about. Understanding kind of how these things go wrong. So it has to be used in the right way. It has to be used in a way whereby it leads you to act. It can, if it's too much fear and anxiety, it can lead to paralysis because you're frightened or whatever. That would be the wrong way. It has to actually lead to positive results. Like everything on the path, it is measured by the result that it has on your actions. If it leads you to act, then it is important. But one way to think about this is to think about what are you like on your deathbed? What is it like to be on your deathbed? And most people, those people have been lived reasonably well on the deathbed. They tend to be quite peaceful. They don't want to have an argument on the deathbed. They don't want to they don't have lots of desires about the future on the deathbed. On the deathbed, if you have lived well, you are peaceful, you are relaxed. You just want to take it easy. So the idea is to kind of bring that sense of being on your deathbed into the present. So you can have that sense of not wanting to be argumentative or not wanting to be, being at peace, basically. Bring that into the present. That's kind of the idea. Because on the deathbed, future doesn't matter. No desires, nowhere to go, nothing to be done. You want to be friendly with people. Okay, let's bring that into the present instead. That's kind of how it works.
No, we're just a bit concerned that we should not be too attached to what could happen in the future. Rather, we do it because we know the benefits of doing it now, here and now.
Yeah.
And not let what can happen in the future be the driving force, but rather our desire to be awakened to be the driving force.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Sure. I agree with you. So do what works. That's basically the bottom line. Yeah. So whatever works for you, whatever works for each one of us, that's kind of the way forward. Yeah. Yeah.
Bhante, in normal circumstances, like we human beings, we have the sense of urgency only when things like our beloved ones or us ourselves suffer from disease, sickness, and we have close relatives who are dying.
Yeah.
So that's the only time when the sense of urgency comes.
Yes.
But then it's a bit too late to practice by then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than contemplating on these 5, how would we move forward? Because this one doesn't really put the hair on fire too much for me. I don't know, but
yeah. Well, the thing is that it doesn't put the hair on fire because it's not real enough. That's why it doesn't work.
It's not real enough.
It's not real enough. It has to be really real. So if you have a sense, let's say that if you knew that you were going to die this afternoon, how would that affect your
I won't join the Sutta class.
You would leave the Sutta class?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you would, and maybe you would be okay to do that. Yeah. There wouldn't be any need for you to be here if you're going to die this afternoon.
Yeah.
So, but the main point is not so much whether you are here or somewhere else. The main point is your attitude to what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, because once if you knew you were going to die this afternoon, it will change your attitude to the world, change your attitude to the things that you own, change your attitude to your relationships. Yeah, if I know that I can die at any time, what does that mean? Why am I holding on to stupid things? There's nothing to hold on to anymore. There's nothing, all these things in this world that are with us, they lose their meaning in a sense. And something else becomes meaningful. What becomes meaningful is more your mind, your mental state. Those things that you take with you into the future, they are the ones that become meaningful. So right now, your entire... You shift your perspective. That's why people on the deathbed become peaceful, because they let go. Yeah, they let go of this world. They let go of what is around them, because they know that now they have to let go of those things. So you, instead of waiting till you die or waiting till you do it now. Okay, so how can I let go now? That's kind of the idea here.
So it's more of developing a good attitude and also perhaps daily habits.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. So this leads to a kind of letting go. Yeah. Okay. It's interesting that one of the suttas I often focus on these retreats is the Buddha's biography before he became the Buddha, and the Buddha was reflecting precisely on these things before his awakening on old age and specifically death, and for him that became the driving force to become a monk. Yeah. So these are very, very powerful contemplations if you think about them in the right way. Yeah.
Hi, Ajahn. I have one question.
Yeah.
We say that right now is what matters, but when I reflected on what you said, I realized that I become wiser as I become older. When I've experienced more things.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel like right now is the moment, but then I realize, but I don't know what to do. Or I don't, people say right now is the moment, okay, but what do I do right now?
Okay, so what you do is that you observe your conduct. This is kind of the idea. So people often talk about the idea of mindfulness in daily life, yeah? But it's not just mindfulness, it's actually being aware of what is happening in your daily life. So as you are speaking, you are aware of where you're coming from. Yeah, so, okay, I'm talking to a person, okay, so usually it's fine. You don't have to worry too much because you know that you're in a good place. But sometimes you realize, okay, I'm coming from a wrong place now. Yeah, maybe I'm being a bit hard or whatever. Yeah, so that's what you are. Or maybe you think, maybe I can be even more compassionate and kind in the way I speak. Yeah, how can I speak to this person to make it more of a gift for the other person or whatever? And so you are aware and you maximize the kind of the the good qualities that you put into your actions and into your speech at any one time. And if you can improve on that even further, it's kind of very, very useful. You're aware, sometimes you are aware of what you're thinking about. Yeah, you're aware of your mind. Okay, what am I thinking right now? Okay, and if you think something dodgy, well, then you change the way you think. If you think something good, okay, then you carry on. And then maybe you even add more good qualities into that. So this is, I think, one of the areas. It's actually very important, because very often in Buddhism we are taught this idea of being mindful in daily life, yeah? But very often it's not really explained what that means. Just being mindful, how is that very helpful? Well, the answer is it's certainly good, but the idea is you do it for a particular purpose, and the purpose is actually to improve the quality of your habits and your speech, your actions, and all of these kind of things. That's really why you want to be mindful. But mindfulness as such, well, it's limited if you're just mindful, if you don't actually change the way you do things.
Bhante, that day I saw from YouTube one of the Chinese monks. He made a quote. He had a quote. He said, when you are healthy, you have many problems. But when your body is sick, you have only one problem. Right. So I was thinking, all our life we have been working so hard, doing this, doing that, and all these things. For what? Now we are looking at these 5 perils. Suddenly it's like, hey, our life doesn't seem to have much meaning, just to prepare for the last moments, one problem when you are sick, when your body is sick, and you don't know when are you going to die, where, how, and whatsoever. Then what are we living for?
It's a very good question. It's a really good question, right? And this is I cannot agree. I couldn't agree more than what you. This is a very, very good point. Yeah, what is it for? You do all of these things. You go through all the motions. You get into. You work really hard at school, so you can get into a good university. You work really hard at university, so you can get into a good job. You work really hard at a good job, so you can get promoted. You get promoted, so you can work even harder to get even more promoted. And you go on, and then you have children. You have maybe half a dog and 1.5 cars and a nice house. I don't know what the average person has in Malaysia, but whatever it is. And then you become a pensioner. And then you die. And then you think, wait a minute, what happened? What was this all about? What was the point of all of that? You went through all of those same things that everyone else went through, solving problems along the road. More problems, more problems, more problems. And you never end. The problems never come to an end. And then the last problem you have is just getting old and looking after your body. And then you die. You get reborn in the next life. As soon as you get reborn, more problems. Start solving problems. And it goes on and on like this. And after a while, I think, what is the point? What am I doing this for? This is madness. This is one of these very, very important reflections. Yeah, what is life really about? And this is why the spiritual path is so incredibly important, because it gives meaning to an existence that otherwise is actually quite without meaning. Where are we going? And the younger you are, when you start realizing this, the more powerful it is, because then you can do something about it. You can do something about it when you're older as well. Yeah, so very nice to have you here, by the way. But you can do more when you are young. So the younger, the better. Yeah. So these are very, very important reflections. And it reminds you the importance of this, getting out of this predicament. This is kind of what the spiritual path is about. Getting out of it now, before it is too late. Because there is a lot, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of commitment. You have to practice this path 100%. It is not easy. That commitment, that right view, takes time to build up. Thank you. Yeah.